Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Andrea and I have been selling on Etsy for 8 years. My Etsy shop is called Saltwater Prep and I have an embroidery business on Etsy. This YouTube channel is where I share everything I've learned in the past, everything I'm currently learning, and just some days in the life of an Etsy seller. Basically, we talk a lot about Etsy. So if that is what you are interested in, you are in the right place. Today specifically, we are going to be talking about how to photograph clothing on Etsy, which I guess it's photography week on this channel because my last video that I shared was all about how to style a flat lay for Etsy. And now we are going to be talking about how to photograph clothing specifically for Etsy. Obviously, this is something that I have quite a bit of experience in because for the last 8 years, we have sold almost exclusively clothing products for Etsy. Obviously, we have some accessories, we have some tech accessories, some wallets, but our most popular product and really a lot of our products are clothing. So jackets, sweatshirts, t-shirts, tank tops, those sorts of things. Even we have joggers, we have like pants. We photograph a lot of women's clothing for my Etsy shop. It is definitely the most common thing that we list. So this is something that I have a lot of experience in. And if you are a regular subscriber of this channel, thank you very much, by the way. You would know that I have a background of wedding photography. Before I was an Etsy seller, I was a full-time wedding photographer, and now I still take weddings part-time, but Etsy consumes most of my time. But anyways, I photograph clothing for many years through my Etsy shop. I also do weddings. I have a lot of experience photographing people and clothing. So the first thing I can say is that photographing clothing can be different than photographing an accessory or something for a couple of reasons. One is that models are required usually for you to fully capture a product, which is very important. You basically have to have a model if you're going to list a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, just so they can see how it fits. Obviously, if I was selling this dress, I wouldn't just want to see it on a hanger. I would want to see it on a model, and honestly, I'd want to see it on multiple models, different skin tones, different sizes, all those sorts of things. You would want to see what you're about to buy on a model, and that's really important for Etsy because your photos are basically one of the only touch points that they have with your product besides your description before they actually buy it because Etsy's all online. So you need to fully capture your product before you list it, and with clothing, that basically requires a model to do so. So this video, I'm just gonna break down 4 different tips I have for photographing clothing. After all the years, my experience, I'm gonna break down the 4 best tips that I have for photographing clothing for Etsy. Okay, so my first tip is to coordinate large photo shoots so that you can get a ton of listing photos in one day. So I'm gonna put up some photos on the screen, and basically what I want you to know about these photos is that they were all taken in the same day. We got a handful of models, and then we picked a location. We brought a laundry basket. I think we actually brought several laundry baskets full of clothing that we were going to list, or photos that needed listings that needed updated photos, and we photographed all of these pictures at the same time. The reason why this is so valuable is that, like I said, it is kind of hard to get models, and it's like when you need a model, you have to get yourself and that model to a scheduled time and place, and that's so hard to coordinate. It can be hard to coordinate. It's obviously worth it in the end. This is how we do most of our photo shoots. If I showed you a screenshot of my Google Drive content, you would just see tons of different photo shoots, and that's what makes up the large majority of our listings are things that came from photos that came from large photo shoots, but it can be a lot to coordinate. And so this is why I do recommend doing it all at one time, just because why coordinate you and someone else getting somewhere to only get a couple of photos? Coordinate, just do the little bit of extra work, coordinate a large photo shoot so that you can get tons of listing photos at one time. When it comes to finding models, just a quick tip, we have always used family friends or I have a cousin who's in high school, or she used to be in high school, she's in college now, but I would have her come out with a bunch of her friends just because that's our target market. So make sure you are using your target market. If your target market is moms, don't use your high school cousin's friends, but that is our target market. So kind of using family friends, or in the past we've done photo shoots out of town, and for that I recommend just going on Instagram and just scouring hashtags, location searches, all those sorts of things, and just sending a DM. Most people will not answer you or they'll be unavailable, but you just pick a time and place and say, can you be here? We are doing this. You'll get compensated for either if you want to pay them money or you want to give them free product, and ask if they're willing to do that. And then you have models for a photo shoot. So that is how I find models for my photo shoots. I thought I'd just give you that quick tip. But my first tip overall is to coordinate a large photo shoot with a lot of products so that you can get a ton of listing photos in one day. Another really good thing about that specifically is that they usually look really good together on social media. And so it just adds a lot of variety but also like some familiarity, because your followers will be like, oh, I've seen that shoot before, and it's another touch point for someone to buy your product. So always good. My next tip is to experiment with selfies, which I never thought I would say this. This is something that we're doing this year in our shop, which we're always trying to grow. Who isn't? So we are just now experimenting with selfies as listing thumbnails for our shot. So it is as elementary as it sounds. Say I was going to list this dress. It's not from Etsy. I would not list this dress, but I would literally just face the windows in my shop, get a cute backdrop, which obviously this one's pretty cute, and I would hold out my phone and I would take a selfie. And then I would edit it cute on Visco. That's what I use to edit my phone photos, and I would make it the listing thumbnail. That simple. We have found actually that this is a very, very compelling listing photo. I think it adds some sort of casualness, which I guess is good for our ideal customer. I don't really know, but it's working. It's easy because you don't need a model. Like, you can literally just do that right after you're done making something. And so this would be good for like any accessory, anything. And then piggybacking off of that, we also use mirror selfies. Again, as elementary as it sounds, you just take a selfie of yourself in the mirror and you make that the thumbnail. I know it sounds silly, and I honestly can't believe it's working as well as it is, but it totally is. And so I do recommend experimenting with selfies if you are photographing clothing. My last two tips are to pose with movement and shoot tight and wide. So I'm going to break those two down, but those are my last two tips. Pose with movement, shoot tight and wide. So whenever it comes to posing with movement, basically what I mean by that is that whenever you are doing those photo shoots or you are using a model, you are going to have to tell them what to do. Either that or a photographer. If you're hiring out a photographer, they're going to have to tell them what to do. Obviously, if you're hiring a photographer, this is their job, but I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it is going to be your job to photograph people. You are going to need to photograph them or pose them while they're moving, just to make that photo seem a little more lifestyle, a little less stiff. Like I said, I come from wedding photography, and I can just tell you from experience, like when I do engagement sessions or on wedding days, if you have a couple, they don't know what to do, they're gonna look stiff because they're like, people aren't used to having their photo. They're not models. Like, they're not models in the sense of like they're for their career. And so you're going to need to tell them what to do. And so just a few poses that are really easy is like walk towards me and sway back and forth, or do like, we always say like a tipsy walk. And so basically like sort of like that adds some really good movement. Or if you have like them cross their arm over like this, I'm gonna step back far. Like this is a really good pose. Playing with your hair, leaning forward and laughing can be a really good pose. If they're really willing to sell it, you can have them do things like that and go like this so they get a lot of movement. Basically, you want to pose them on an action. This can be anything, like I mentioned. Another really good idea is to give them something to do with their hands. And so if you are at like a coffee shop, or you are near a coffee shop and you want to do a photo outside, get them a cup of coffee so they have something to hold in their hand, and it gives them something to do. So always photographing or posing your models with movement is a really good idea for your Etsy shop. The last tip, and this is a super important tip because like I mentioned before, you want to make sure that you are fully capturing your product. And this last tip is honestly the best way to do that, and it's to shoot tight and wide. So I'm just going to show you guys examples on this video. So this would be considered a tight shot. I am close. It's zoomed in on me. It's not zoomed in because I'm not zooming in or out with the lens, but like it's tighter on me. And this would be considered a wide shot. It is showing more. You want to make sure to shoot tight and wide because that gives you a lot of information, or I guess it doesn't give you a lot of information. It gives your customer a lot of information about your product. If you were buying this dress, obviously you would need a super wide shot to see the length, the skirt, how it fits, all those sorts of things. But you also might be interested in a tight shot so that you can see the texture of the dress, which you can't see on this video, but it has like a little bit of a texture to it. And you're only going to achieve that by showing a tight shot. So you definitely want to use both tight and wide shots in order to fully capture your product for your listing, because it's just so important that you do that. So that is my fourth and final tip for photographing clothing for Etsy. I really do hope this video was helpful. I know that photographing clothing specifically can be a little bit more difficult, and so I hope that you have found a little bit of comfort. It is my goal on this channel to always break down Etsy concepts that could be complicated in a very simple and easy to digest way. And so I hope that you found this video helpful. If you are looking to grow on Etsy, that's what we talk about every single week on this channel, twice a week. And so I would love it if you subscribed. Thank you so much for watching.